Hi, my name's Cassandra Eustace, and I'm a visual artist, and I have a studio practice. I belong to the Backwater Studios here in Cork City. My work has always oscillated around the ideas of reinvention and difference and visibility. I'm an identical twin, so I've kind of lived in this sphere of being visible and invisible at the same time. So these issues of identity and um, how to feel normal, I guess it is, actually in your own skin and maintaining your own mental health has been themes that are running through my work all the time. I used to make a lot of work on reflective surfaces because that was a way of talking about how you see things and then you don't see things, reflecting also back into your own internal dialogue of what you are aware of and what you aren't aware of. Again, threading back to how to maintain mental health and the inner voices, which can affect how you're seeing yourself or your self-image and your own peace of mind. So the foundation of my practice is drawing, and drawing informs my thinking and my making. And nowadays, I'd be using a lot more acrylic paint and oil pastel, and I'd use surfaces like card, or board, canvas, paper. With drawing, I love it because it brings you into the moment. When you're drawing, you're actually there with your entire body because it's an embodied activity. So you're bringing your last thought that you had, you're bringing the pain in your shoulder, the ideas that you have about whatever it is that you're actually drawing, and your perceptual process is being affected in what you're looking at, and that's coming through the drawing, and that connects you with the viewer. Anybody looking at something that someone's drawn knows that the drawer was actually there in the time and the space making that drawing, and I love that idea. I think that's what excited me about taking part in the collective memories from the Glen project, because it was also about, as I understood it at the time, how do we narrate our past and how do we narrate our life and who's telling that story. So the richness of oral history is very interesting to me and quite personal, because my mum is still alive and she's very elderly, and I know that as soon as she dies, all those stories go with her and they'll never be heard again. So I think there's something very rich about listening to seniors talking about their lives and their experiences. I decided that I'd ignore my normal ways of working and my normal mediums I'd used to work. And I found it easier just to kind of go, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do and I don't know what I'm going to use. I'm just going to show up and see what happens. And I actually learned over the process that when you take on projects and you approach things with a very open-ended, no expectation attitude, the project immediately starts feeding back to you what mediums you're going to use, how you're going to approach it. For instance, on that first meeting that we had with the women, and it was great. It was very convivial and we were just talking and chatting. And I was trying to take notes like a crazy woman, capturing the stories. And I got home that evening to find that half the notes didn't make sense. So I realized that going into the next session, I had to rethink my way of trying to capture what was happening in these very energetic discussions. I realized then, obviously, I had drawing and I can draw quicker than I can write. So I started doing a mixture of these blind drawings, which would become invaluable to me later down the track, not that I realized it at the time, and making notes. And in this image, I really just wanted to get an idea of the energy of those conversations that we had over the sessions that we were meeting, and also the camaraderie in that activity, in the energy of that drawing. But you'll also notice process became very important in how I approached the work. Because I had very limited resources, I realized that actually if I used a drawing process each time, if you looked into why she used that process and why what I was trying to say with that process, of that drawing process, you'd get more insight into what the work was talking about. As a viewer, you can look in, you're not actually in this conversation, but you're kind of on the outside of it, looking in, and it looks like there's something going on, but you're not quite sure. You can't actually hear what they're saying. Hopefully it gets across the energy of those conversations that we were having about, with the women, just talking about their lives and their lived lives up there in the Glen. Over the course of our conversations, I came to realize that it was actually the women who were telling the stories that became of most interesting to me. And I kind of realized that the Glen was nothing without these women. The Glen was a construct. It didn't arrive with a lot of stories. So the stories came with the women. And it was actually therefore the women and them telling me their stories that became almost more important than their stories. So, you know, in all my drawings, I have included all the women in there, and they're not random figures or made up figures. They're the actual women that have been coming to the sessions that I recorded. I'd taken photographs of them, or I drew them like I was saying. So, for instance, in the drawing called Home Isn't So Much Where But Who, talk about the who's and you find your home. This drawing has a lot of the women in it, actually, and the title says a lot about the work. In fact, all the titles of the work discuss issues that generated the image that I made and ideas about the work that came up. So this one is exactly what started coming through in these conversations, that it was actually the women, the people that lived in the Glen, the women talking about, fundamentally, it was their relationships, the companionships that sustain them. And when I would ask, you know, what's the best thing or the thing about living in the Glen, or something that you would pass on or remember, it was always referencing family, neighbors, community. So this idea of community really resonated, especially as we were going through COVID at the same time. And I think we've all become more cognizant of the value of relationship and how we've been relying on each other and on community. A home is created by the people that you're in relationship with in that home environment. And it is those relationships that make up the home. And so I wanted to get this sense of community and this sense of, you know, it was a constructed drawing again, because I wanted to talk about not only how memory is constructed every time we tell our stories, we're reshaping it, we're retelling it, but the Glen as a housing estate went through various reconstructions. I kept the women blank at the same time because I wanted them to also stand out in the image, because they're the most important thing to me about life in the Glen, was actually the people there. And I also wanted to pull on the idea that leaving them blank meant that they have their own idea, their own autonomy. They defined also their own experience of where they're living and how they talk about it. Ultimately, one of the biggest themes that I feel that I've taken away from this project is the idea that being in relationship with other people in your community, in your life, your friends, your family, your neighbors, brings a richness to your life no matter where you live. And as far as the work goes, I've attempted to get across, hopefully, to the viewer some kind of curiosity that they might look at some of the figures, for instance, in my drawings and ask, who are they, or what are they doing, or where are they, where do they come from, where's the Glen, and what did she mean by titling that in such a way. If people can come to work and I spark some sort of interest or further curiosity about the project, then my work's done. I'm delighted.